My name is Steve D. Daytona Beach Shores for code enforcement. These are the code enforcement hearings. The way we're going to proceed this morning is I'll be calling each case in kind. If someone is not here, I will take priority with the people who have shown up and then do their cases after anyone that came here's case is done. The way the city has the burden of proof moving forward. The city can present evidence, the city can call witnesses. You are entitled to cross-examine any of the city's representatives, and then it is your turn. You can call witnesses, you can present evidence, you can testify yourself. If you're unsure as to what your role is at any given moment, just ask me, raise your hand, and I'll be more than happy to tell you your options. I can't give you legal advice, but I can say you can turn right, you can turn left, you can back up, you can go forward, okay? So the first order of business is always approving the minutes from the last meeting. The last meeting was in August of 2022, so it was some time ago. I don't expect anybody to remember what happened then. I know most of you were not there. But does anybody have any objection to, thank you, to the approval of the minutes as they're written? Okay, seeing no objection, we're going to approve the minutes. It's, Ms. Herstein, it's my understanding that the city would like to remove item 4C. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay, then that'll be removed from our agenda. That leaves us with the first case, which is case number PCDEF 2021-20. The property owner is Richard D. Merkel. Is Mr. Merkel here?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Ms. Herstein?
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor. I'd first like to ask that each of the documents provided by the city in the Code Enforcement Special Magistrate notebook for this case be accepted as evidence along with any slides in the PowerPoint.
Okay. Mr. Merkel, were you provided with a copy of the packet that the city is going to introduce in your case?
I have what I received that was brought to my house, but the packet that Wynn had for me, I gave back to her.
You gave it back?
Yes.
I took back because, and so I'm going to strike that request because I believe that Mr. Merkel is going to request a continuance for reasons that he has made us aware of. We are not opposed to it as long as it's to the date certain, which is the next regularly scheduled special magistrate.
Okay. Mr. Merkel, is that true? You'd like to request a continuance?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Could you please come up to the podium so that you can be heard, it can be put on the record, and then I'll decide whether or not to grant your continuance.
Okay.
Okay. Why would you like to postpone this 1 month?
I was late getting this packet because I was out of town
Okay.
for the holidays, and it was only about shortly, just over a week ago when I got it. And I'd like to have more time to better prepare for the documentation and presentation for my reasons and all the reasons why I wasn't able to get the work done by the time given allotted to me. We originally were granted the hearing to come in compliance.
Okay. I remember your case. You have a Honda S2000 in your driveway.
I do.
Okay. I'm going to grant your continuance for, I don't know how many days it is, but it'll be the next session, which will be February 16th. So about 28 days, 27 days, something like that.
Thank you.
Okay? All right, we'll see you next month, sir. Okay. Moving right along, the next case is listed as 4B, which is CDEF 2020-03. The property owners are Charles Goberia and Paul Goberia, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Is there Mr. Goberia here?
I'm his representative.
You're representing them, okay? Your last name is Dow, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, Ms. Dow, were you provided with the materials by the city?
Yes.
Okay. And are we proceeding on this? I noticed in the readings that there was a hint of a request for a continuance.
For this case, I don't believe so, Your Honor.
Okay.
So I would like to ask that each of the documents provided by the city and the code enforcement special magistrate for this case be accepted as evidence, along with the slides in the PowerPoint presentation, which the respondents' counsel has been provided.
Okay, and you were, Ms. Dow?
Yes.
And do you have a legal objection to any of them? Are you a member of the Florida Bar?
Yes.
Okay. And we have a consent to represent?
We actually don't require it for attorneys,
Okay,
or if the owner's here. So in this situation, it wasn't required.
okay, great. All right, Ms. Herstein?
So were the documents accepted? I'm so sorry.
Yes, they have been accepted into evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to add one page worth of changes to page 4B3. This that I'm about to hand you, if I may approach, is consistent with what the respondent has been given,
Okay.
and is also consistent with what you see on the slide. I have made 2 strike-throughs with earlier dates. It actually worked in favor of the respondent.
All right, thank you. 37 days
And will
and 400, okay.
the first one was a Scrivener's error, and the second, there was some communication. There were actually 2 different lights. One, the light that delayed things to the July date was a different light, and I will explain that as part of the city's presentation, if I may.
Okay, all right,
I would
please
like-
proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to point out, and I have, that I've not been sworn in at this time.
All right, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thank you. Sorry, a little rusty. We haven't done this in 6 months.
It has been quite some time, since August. I would like to point out that Attorney Jessica Gao timely submitted 4 pages of correspondence for the special compliance hearing, and those were included in your notebook for review. They start with a 5th cover letter, which has a little bit of highlighting on it. So this is a second compliance hearing for a case which began about 3 years ago. There were 11 violations and 6 internal or interior deficiencies observed during a certificate of compliance vacant property registration process. These violations and deficiencies were sent after after the CCVP inspection was done in January of 2020. General contractor Bill Bethune was involved within a week of the notice being sent. He came into our office. With limited activity and no permits being obtained, the initial hearing took place in October of 2020. That was after a 6-month period of no hearings due to COVID. The property owner was given 47 days to supply an engineer's letter regarding some columns that were viewed to be structurally unsafe or unsound, and then 90 days total from the hearing to make the property compliant. Though the engineer's letter was received, all but 2 of the violations remained non-compliant after the 90-day period. At the first compliance hearing on February 21st, 2021, the fines were imposed as a lien, and the property representative, Raid Hayat, was asked to provide by you, sir, an update at the next month's hearing as to the columns on the east side of the building and other progress. You had some concerns shared by the city, and you asked for an update at the next meeting. The update was provided, including the fact that a car had rammed 2 of the storefront windows 3 nights before that update was provided. It was also discussed at this meeting, the items we still needed to be able to, the items that were still missing before we could fully review the main building permit application. So that was another opportunity that we got to share with the general contractor and the respondent's representative why we had not been able to issue a building permit yet. And we did so on the record during that meeting. Mr. Gobeiro came to the county August 2021. Actually, sorry, he came to the country. He is, generally lives out of the country. He came here August 2021. He rectified 4 of the violations while he was here. He also transferred a representation, and I say representation meaning layperson representation, from Raed Hayat to Sandy Bethune, who was his realtor and also the wife of the general contractor. Authority to represent him, and he gave me a different in-country mailing address to use. Generally, actually, almost without exception, the other address that we had to use was not successful in getting mail through, though he responded when I emailed him. Additional submissions on questions and queries were made for the main building permit along the way. Building official Edmonds issued 3 separate response letters about why that permit could not be issued yet, what we were still waiting for. He issued at least 3 separate response letters, sometimes more than, sometimes he presented the same letter because nothing had changed since the last time that we were asked what was holding up their building permit. Those response letters are generally done when an application remains incomplete. That's the standard practice and policy to make sure that it's in writing exactly what's needed. I inspected every time an update regarding compliance was requested by Mr. Govera or one of his representatives, and at other times too, along the way, just for progress purposes. During the 17 months the building accrued fines, 4 other issues arose, which would have prevented issuance of the CCBP. So 17 months of noncompliance is a long time, and things happen, especially at a vacant building. Things happen that we needed to reach out and say, well, now this has happened. Of those items, though we didn't add them to the notice of violation, a certificate of compliance couldn't be issued with any of these outstanding. So along the way, there was a set of PVC lines attached to the ceiling. They partially fell into the first floor area. I'll show you a picture of that. We had to let them know that because that would be obviously a grabbing hazard, a catch hazard for any first responder going in there if it were dark. Then the car going through the windows was another. Last January, a door was ripped off or rotted off the west side of the building, and in the last 4 days, that was the third thing. And the fourth thing was, in the last 4 days before compliance could have been achieved, which would have been June 10th, someone replaced an exterior light fixture. So I was out looking, re-inspecting about the paintwork, and saw that there was a different light fixture in place, exterior light fixture in place, than when I had been there 4 days prior.
Okay.
And I was with somebody and said, what happened, and
Right.
was told that no permit had been approved.
I don't remember, what was the primary use of this building?
And I have been here since 2006, and it has not been in use that I'm aware since then. Before that time, maybe even in early 2006, I think it was a body piercing.
Okay, so it's like a
studio.
storefront.
Yes, and there is an upstairs. It's a sizable building considering that they were doing body piercing out of it. It's, it's got a generous upstairs. It's
Okay.
actually quite sizable. So 4 things popped up that had to be addressed. Rather than being able to be compliant on June 10th, getting that permit ended up taking, we ended up getting the permit application on July 1. They picked it up on July 6th and got their building, their electrical inspection final approved on July 7th, which was what brought the property into compliance. I would like to take you through the slides of the violations and when they were compliant. I don't know if Ms. Gao, generally that's, it's a 5-minute process or a little bit longer. The other alternative is I could just take you through the four other issues that came up, just brief slides of that. I think for the record, it's probably important that we go through them if that's acceptable to everybody. The only thing that I could say is if Ms. Gao had already looked at the slides beginning on page 4B77 and did not have any challenges or questions about them, then I would forego going violation by violation.
Your choice.
I have no challenge.
Okay. So looking at what you just handed me, 4B-3, I've got a violation at 506 days, which is the furthest out, and then 427, 533.
533 days was to the July 7th, 2022 compliance date.
Okay.
If I may just show you the 4 brief slides of the
Sure.
additional things. The other violation pictures are already on record, and you do have affidavits of compliance, partial and non-compliance in the record that support the slides that I'm not showing you. The slides are also in the record as well.
Okay.
So these are just the 4 slides. PVC lines fell into the first floor space. There's a picture of that. You can kind of see that through the window.
That's that white line?
That's those white, lines at the top.
Okay.
That was unexpected, but just needed to be addressed. That's a picture of, this was taken the morning after the car had rammed into the windows. It was quite unfortunate.
Okay, did the car running into the windows hamper compliance at all?
The car running into the windows was, created another rectification which needed to happen before the CCVP could be issued. The certificate of compliance could be issued, and because not obtaining the certificate of compliance was one of the violations, violation K, I would have to say that in that sense, it added to, didn't necessarily stretch the timeline, but added to the things that needed to be done. And that was not something that you were aware of when you initially gave them 90 days. So in that sense, possibly, but did it stretch the overall timeline? I wouldn't be able to speak to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This door, this was actually after they took off the surround to the door, the frame. Something had happened to the door and they decided to remove it. Unfortunately, it leads to an area under stairs, which are exterior stairs, which are egress stairs. So you have to protect it with some sort of a door. So that door being either falling off or being removed created an issue that also needed to be addressed. And it was. And finally, I can expand this picture if you're not able, the top picture, if you're not able to see that those 2 light fixtures are different. The top picture was taken on June 6th when I was there for inspection. We were looking at the paint. Some touch-up painting needed to be done. And then the bottom was on June 10th. I was there and again and said, oh, new light fixtures. I said, what happened here? You don't have a permit. You've got to get a permit. This has to happen immediately. It's going to continue the fines. And it ultimately added another 30 days to the fines. The permit was obtained, but that's where things stood. And ultimately, the certificate of compliance vacant property was issued. You can see the date approved was July 7th, 2022.
Okay, and that's when the fines stopped running. The fact that we didn't have a meeting
Correct, Your
6
Honor.
months has nothing to do with this.
Absolutely nothing to do with
Okay.
this, correct, Your Honor. So we are hereby requesting either an order number 12 or order number 13, either imposing the fines or reducing or resizing the fines at your discretion.
And the fines as they sit right now are $133,250?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay.
I would also say that we're also requesting a total of minimum administrative fees in the amount of $243.26, and that would be if you were imposing the fees of $141.83 for today's hearing. The affidavit for those new fines begin on page 4B-70, or sorry, it's just that one page. And again, we're requesting order 12 or order 13, depending on whether you remove or rather impose fully or reduce or resize the fines.
Okay. Is it Dow or Gao?
Dow, with a G.
With a G?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Gao, do you have any questions for Ms. Herstein?
No, not for Gwen.
Okay. All right. Ms. Herstein, is there anybody else you'd like to call as a witness?
For purposes of the record, I appreciate that opportunity, Your Honor, and I would like to call building official Steve Edmonds.
All right. Mr. Evans, would you mind coming in? Please raise your right hand and be sworn. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I can't. Do I need to stop? Okay. Steve, if you would please state your name, your position with the city, and how long you've been with the city.
Steve Edmonds, I'm the building official of the city of Daytona Beach Shores. I've been here going on 20 years.
Thank you, Steve. And do the facts, or first of all, do the materials as they've been presented, do they represent an accurate depiction of any that you created or were part of during the course of this case?
Yes, I do.
Do any of the facts that have been presented differ from anything that you recall for the purposes of the special magistrate having the correct information,
No, they do not.
making his determination? Do you have anything to add?
Not this time.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for this witness? I do. Let me find it. Here it is. Mr. Edmonds, on October 8, 2021, in the notes of progress, are you familiar with this?
Let me see what exactly what you're talking about.
It's 4B-12.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Would you read October 8, 2021, please?
Sandy Bethune called me. The window installer had told her they had sent current window specs for Steve to review. She told me, "You're holding us up. Nobody knows what you want." Steve took me to the specs we most recently received, and they clearly stated they were from 2015. Basically, it was I needed a new current product approval.
Oh, so they were proposing windows that were,
Not product approved anymore.
okay, so they had windows that were okay in 2015, but not now?
Right.
Okay,
Every 3 years, they have to, all windows have to have a new product approval or be retested or recertified. And they brought me an old certification for current windows.
oh, okay.
So I had to
Does
have
that
new
mean that
current
they were not necessarily good? They just, their certification was old?
Their certification is old, and sometimes they, due to pressure changes or design changes in the building code, they might not be allowed to be used anymore, but sometimes it's just a matter of getting a certification company to restate and reapply that same windows to the state.
Okay. All right, thank you. I didn't understand that one entry, and I
Not
appreciate you.
required just by code, by Florida Building Code, to have a current NOA or product approval for all windows, doors, or anything that's on the exterior of a building.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gao, do you have any questions of this witness based upon the court's question?
I do not.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. I do read everything you send me.
I see that. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Gao, it is your turn.
Wonderful. And I also have a flash drive. I don't know if we need to load that up. Not with any new information. It's just information from the permitting record.
Okay.
And it's a little 2008 South Atlanta. The property address. It's here. Sorry. That's okay. Yes. Thank you. I can never find the cursors. All right, good morning. Just for the
morning.
record, Jessica Gao with Cobb Cool Law Firm, 149 South Ridgewood Avenue, Daytona Beach, Florida. I'm used to saying that for public hearings. I know you probably don't need my address.
That's all right.
Yeah.
We may want to send you a Christmas card.
Perfect. That would be wonderful. I would say, so all of the information contained in these slides that I'm going to go through are based on city public records. So there's no additional information. The information in your packet, I apologize, it's an email. We requested an affidavit of personal knowledge from Sandy, who is the former property manager, but she has passed away.
Oh,
And so that was the best record we had available for your review.
okay.
So I thought that it may be helpful to go through what I like to do when I review a code compliance case for clients who come to ask us help is, did you try? What progress was put forward? I know that's one of the criteria for issuance of the fines for the site. And so we look at progress, we look at the steps that it took to get there, and why this took so long. 533 days is a very long time. And so I want to thank Gwen for letting me go through all of the permitting records. She was there for any questions I had. As her records note, we came into this really just for this second compliance hearing. So we weren't involved in the process, but we've really felt caught up here as we've gone. So I've created a little timeline that you can see here of the compliance review for the site. So January 2021 was the original compliance deadline. As Gwen said, by the time that compliance deadline came around, we had 2 items in compliance, the gutter and the electrical covering. And then we had the others remaining that needed to be resolved. You can see the bump in the road, or the bump in the storefront, occurred on March of 2021, and that is at Daytona Beach Shores. The public safety officers responded, not the county. So there's a city case number there, just for the record. And then the next compliance date was in August of 2021 for the window trim, AC repair, and wall sign. That was, like Gwen said, when the property owner was in town. May 2022, we've got a compliance date for vegetative debris being removed and the conduit being repaired. June 2022, the paint and facade improvements, and then the July 2022, that certificate of habitability and the light fixture. So the final check boxes. I am generally a land use and zoning attorney, and so I like to expand a little bit on the permitting process and why we see the timelines that we see. And so that's what I've kind of laid out in these slides before we get to our request for a reduction.
Okay, it may help you for me to tell you what I'm interested in.
Sure.
Okay, we've got August 2021 and then May 2022. It's that time gap where there's not a lot going on. That's why I'm interested in why it took such a long period of time to clear vegetation and things like that. Okay?
Absolutely. All right, and we will hit on those when we do the timing. So I just did it by permit. I thought that was the easiest way to follow the public records. These are typically going to be very quick. I will say that the Daytona Beach Shores Permitting Department is very efficient, and if every local government could do it the way they do, my job would be easier. So we have the mechanical permit for the AC unit removal that was applied for in January, which is in that middle gap. It was issued in January of 2021. The final inspection for that removal was in February of 2021. So you see a quick turnaround, permitting review 14 days, time for completion of work 30 days. It may be a little long to remove the AC units, but I think that's probably typical in terms of a work proposal. Again, in that same kind of gap that you're interested in, the roof permit was applied for in February 2021, issued February 23rd, 2021. Final inspection was March 9th, 2021. So permitting review for the roof, 6 days, absolutely fantastic. Completion of work, 14 days. I got a bid on my roof for 4 months, so I would like to know who they used. The big permit repair review for this was the general repair permit. Gwen has touched a little bit on how that needed to be modified over time. It was originally applied for in December of 2020, and that application was not compliant with the standards that the city needed to do a substantive review. The city requested detailed engineering. In the interim of that, the roof permit was finalized in March. The March 14th date is when that vehicle drove through the site. So while we're pulling together engineered plans at the request of the city, a vehicle runs into the building. They have to add new glass and framing to that scope, and we've already heard a little bit on how the glass and permitting had to be reviewed. So they submit a revised permit application with fully engineered drawings in June of 2021. And this is where it gets into the back and forth of permitting that I would say I'm used to. You know, contractor submits something, they need additional details, they resubmit, you go back and forth. Typically not to this extent, if you have, you know, great submittals, but I don't know that it's unusual. So we had a request for additional information in July of 2021 about the column engineering. You had a letter certifying the steel beams in the end of July, so about 9 days later. There was a second request for additional information in August of 2021 about the wind design loans. Another request on September 8th for additional information on charge contacts. But that's what the permit history is. Another request for additional information on 9/29, requesting a modification to the plan set to pull in additional scope. And then the property owner requested that they add a storage door to the permit in May of 2022, which was an addition that came up during the work. So this permit was finally issued in December 7th, 2021. The inspection was in May 2022. Now, the permit review time for this is 343 days from start to finish, but I don't think that I could, without being disingenuous, say that the December 29th, 2022 start date was appropriate. So by the time that it was actually a completed application that was submitted, which would be June 28, 2021, there's 162 days of permitting review.
Okay, and of that 162 days, what do you attribute to the city as opposed to the contractor not providing the information requested?
Sure, and that's hard to track, absolutely. Obviously, additional information was requested. I think that, I can't turn back time, right? But if there was a meeting set from the property owner or request of the contractor to go through preliminary plans and say, is this everything you need? So that they could say, no, you're missing this, this, and this, that would have been fantastic. That didn't happen here. We weren't involved in it. It's unfortunate. I think that they had contractors who were trying, who were in communication with the city. The packet, I apologize to Gwen for how many emails and calls she had to go through. Here, there's not much of a gap in terms of, are we okay with this? Oh, no, we have to fix this. So I'm not going to say the city should have had a full list at each time, because I think the contractor was submitting things. The city said, hey, you're missing this one little thing. And things came up along the way, the car crashing, the PVC falling down, those other items that had to be accommodated that can't really be contributed to the party.
Okay. What's your answer?
Of the 160.
I understand the explanation, but what's the answer?
We can look at the gaps between when we responded to letters and updated plans were submitted in that review.
Okay.
I didn't do that math.
Would you like a minute?
I think it made
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but every day counts for your client.
No,
And I'm always interested in what you're doing and what the city is doing. And if it's the city's lack of response, and 6 days for a permit turnaround seems amazing to me,
Correct.
but I'm not going to charge you those 6 days because that's on the city. So if you can give me the request for information, the day it was submitted, and then the time it took for the city to get back to you, I may mitigate those days. And I know you're not expecting to do this math problem.
correct. Yeah, I can look at I've got the records. I can look at it and do that.
Would you like time to do that, and I'll take another case, and we'll continue this
Sure.
in 20 minutes or so?
Sure.
Okay, so you're clear on what I'm interested in?
Yes.
Great. And if it looks like I'm reprimanding you or scolding you, that's not my intention. I know you've never been in front of me before, and I'm trying to help you know what I want,
Absolutely.
okay? I'm looking for dates that are not your client's fault,
Sure.
okay?
I'm going to close this so that we can skip.
Right now I have, based on what you've told me, 29 days,
Okay.
okay?
Thank you. Do you want this back up on your main?
I'll take care of it. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. While she's doing her homework, We'll call another case. And that would be, because 4C has been removed, we are now on 5A, which is case PCDEF 2022-55, which is Oceanside Inn Condominium Association. Is there a representative from there? No. Okay. Let's have a look at 5B. That is case PCDEF 2022-61, Beachside Coastal LLC. Is there a representative from there? Ma'am, in the pink?
Yes.
I cannot believe you're a big fan of code enforcement hearings, and you have nothing else to do but to watch us. Why are you here?
Well, I reside at 3150 South Atlantic Avenue. And I've been there for a year and a half now. And for 6 months, they have not fixed my shower. A rat came through the wall. They ripped up my carpet. They haven't replaced it in 6 months. I called them and talked to them. They want me to put in order forms, and I do. Still nothing was resolved. I mean, my neighbor who was with me, Tim, he was evicted because he complained because I had a water leak in my apartment.
Okay.
And they had maintenance.
All right, all right. I appreciate that. I have not sworn you in, nor do I know your name.
My name is Maria Hansen.
Okay, Ms. Hanson, we will take that case next because you're interested in it.
I really am. I'm sorry. I came to America for a better life from Brazil, and it's just amazing to me. And I was management in Virginia, and I took care of 24 apartments, and I never was so delinquent with my people, residents there. I just can't believe it's being done. I mean, and I work hard for my money, you know?
I understand, and we're going to find out why the city feels the building is not in compliance, and I cannot guarantee that it's going to fix your problem.
I know. I just want someone to hear me.
Since you're interested in this case, this is the one we'll take next.
I thank you so very much, sir.
Okay, so that would be 4B.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just need a second.
And there is, just again to ask, there is no representative for Beachside Coastal LLC, is that correct? All right, hearing no one, please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just need a second to get to that case. Sorry, Your Honor. Thank you for your patience, Your Honor. This is an initial hearing for the property owned by Beachside Coastal LLC with violation address 3150 South Atlantic Avenue, in Daytona Beach Shores. Code enforcement case number PCDEF 2022-61, having Volusia County tax parcel ID 5334-0002-0080. This property was determined by city staff to be in violation of City Code of Ordinances of the City of Daytona Beach Shores, Appendix G, Land Development Code, Chapter 5, Section 5-6, Building Code Adopted, which refers in part to the Florida Building Code 7th Edition, 2020, Chapter 1, Section 105.1 required. And you'll see that this, the three violations are listed as A, B, and C, and they're all for work without permits. A was for no plumbing permit obtained for replacement of plumbing lines between buildings and around buildings on the property. B was no building permit obtained for opening walls to access plumbing lines in multiple units on the property, at least in units 1, 2, 3, 14, and 15 that we're aware of at this time. And C is for no plumbing permit being obtained for altering or replacing plumbing lines in multiple units on the property. So no building permit, no plumbing permit, and then no plumbing permit for the exterior. And C is also for at least units 1, 2, 3, 14, and 15. September 9th, 2022, and certainly let me explain that the property looks like this if you're standing at the sidewalk on A1A. The picture in the upper left is the left of the driveway. There's a straight driveway back perpendicular from A1A. The picture up top is what you'd see on the left, a number of buildings. And the picture that you see on the bottom right is what you'd see to the right. So this is almost a melded view. You've got one alleyway back, one perpendicular drive, and then buildings on either side.
Is this a motel or apartments?
This is a long-term rental situation, basically.
Okay.
This is an overview of the same property, so you get a better idea. We're talking about units 1 through 3 today, which are in the same building that houses units 1 through 4. And then we're also talking about, on the opposite side of the little driveway, units 14 and 15, which are on the right side. I have highlighted in yellow the places where we've observed the trenches being dug with the new pipe in place, where the pipes have all been, and I will show you pictures of that exactly, but I wanted you to have an overview of the property and what we're talking about, where we're talking about it, rather. So September 9th, 2022, a stop work order was issued after a complaint came in about a trench being dug between A1A and rental units adjacent to A1A. In the trench, plumbing lines were being replaced. So when an inspector went, Inspector Edmonds, plumbing lines were being replaced in that area and they had no permit. So a stop work order was issued. 2.5 weeks later, September 27th, we received a complaint that water to some units was being turned off all day so work could be done. And then generally turned back on at night, but sometimes they'd forget to turn it back on, is what I was told, and they would go without water overnight. Apparently it had been going on for quite some time, but with all of the tenants in these buildings, apparently, well, I was told that they hadn't complained earlier because they were concerned. Before the hurricanes, finding places that you wanted to rent in your price range and that were in a desirable location was challenging. After the hurricanes, even more so. So because I was surprised that I hadn't been contacted, but then once I got one call, I started getting a few calls. So there was that complaint that came in. This individual was hesitant to fully go on record, and I found that a lot in the beginning. Then once one person went on record, I had others do the same. So a week later, I heard from a different tenant who was dealing with no water during the day again, and sometimes at night, occasionally they'd forget to turn it back on. Why they turned the water on or off during the day, they said they needed to work on leaks, fixing leaks that were happening in the buildings, and then it would go back on again generally at night.
Who were you in contact with that told you they were fixing leaks?
The tenants who were complaining to me said, well, it looks like they're just doing this, or I walked over to find out what they were working on and they had had a leak open up overnight, and so they were just in there fixing that leak. And I asked who these individuals were. Did they see any names on trucks or anything like that? No, they were familiar with the person as their maintenance man, is the story that, that I heard. Again, it's all,
Did you ever have contact with the owner of the property or anybody in authority?
To this point, I have not. I will get to the point just shortly hereafter about the manager of the property, yes. I did, because I understood that, having people not go on record was limiting me in being able to move a case forward based on the Florida statutes. I started asking about who do they pay rent to? Who was the manager? And was given information and found out that I actually had worked alongside that person on previous cases. So I picked up the phone and said, hey, what's going on? That was on October 7th, rather on October 11th. I reached out to the manager of the property. I've never, still to this point, talked to the out-of-state owner. I don't know the owner personally. I've never spoken with him on the phone or in any capacity that I'm aware of. Though the manager basically expressed an extreme amount of frustration on the phone call. He did and was pretty excitable for the beginning of it. He did calm down and did take information from me, plumber information, contractor information, so that he could make additional calls to try to obtain help for licensed individuals to do the job. That's how we left that phone conversation. I was hopeful that he would resolve the issue. In October 19th, so a couple of weeks later, I got a third complaint with somebody who had internal issues. Some of the tenants who were calling only were calling about the front. They didn't have anything going on inside their own units. This third individual did have some interior work without a permit, and this individual was willing to go on record. And as I stated there, multiple tenants were still wavering about going on record, meaning I need their name and address
Right.
in a way I can verify to satisfy the Florida statutes.
There's no anonymous calls anymore.
Correct. So ultimately, arrangements were made to inspect unit number 1 on October 28th. I did do that. I saw a large hole in the shower wall, drywall missing from the back wall under the sink, and a hole near the toilet through the tile, drywall, and the concrete block. And I have pictures of that, which I'll show you in just a minute. Within 3 days, I had been in another unit interior, meaning they had also been willing to go on record and had pictures sent to me of a third unit, all with very similar issues. Holes through the shower, which I'll show you again in just a minute.
Any idea? So they opened the shower up to work on the plumbing?
Someone did.
Okay, this wasn't where it deteriorated to the point where a hole formed.
No, Your Honor, I'll show you and I
Okay.
think it'll be clearer. On November 3rd, the building official issued a second stop work order for units 14 and 15 for building and plumbing work without permits. At that point, that right then and there, we generated and sent a notice of violation the same day by certified mail, first-class mail, and posted it. Good service was achieved for that notice. You can see the affidavits from pages 5B13 to 5B15. I reevaluated after 30 days. No permits have been obtained or applied for, so I generated a statement of violation request for hearing and notice of hearing. These were sent by certified mail, first-class mail, and were also posted. In this case, the certified mail's green card was returned during the delivery date of January 9th. But I had gone through the other motions as well, just to try to get some contact. Even though that was received on January 9th, I have not had any contact from the owner. I have not been contacted again by the manager, who has at the very least my email address because I send him all those contractors' informations. We're bringing the property before you with a request that you find it in violation with an order number 7, and you have 30 days to obtain building and plumbing permits, which is generous in this situation. That would be February 20th. And rectify the issues, all of the issues, by March 20th, which is again another 30 days after the permits, or fines of $250 per day would begin. Minimum cost reimbursement is requested in the amount of $149.09, and you can see the affidavit for that on page 5B-35. And I would like to show you briefly pictures of what I have just been describing. Here's
Okay.
the first stop work order by Steve Edmonds on 9/9/22. This is the second stop work order within 2 months on 11/3/2022. That time it was for the units 14 and 15. Violation A, no plumbing permit obtained for replacement of plumbing lines between buildings on the property. So I have 2 slides for this. The top 2, the one on the top upper right is just a sort of a closer view of what's going on. You can see that there's an electrical conduit running underneath this. So they're all supposed to be being placed in such a way that's not gonna be approvable, unfortunately, once they do get the permit. It's gonna have to be pulled back out, from what I understand. That's right along A1A. If the picture were larger, on the right-hand side of the upper left-hand, you'd start to see the sidewalk and then A1A. And then the first building, the easternmost building, you can see up in the top left corner of that picture. If you go around the corner to the north and then heading west from that building, you can see where it has continued, and there's less grass, so there's a better view. They were taking that old corroded pipe and replacing it with the gray PVC. This is the second picture supporting violation A. The yellow line I drew in to show just alongside that other trench that had been dug. You can see A1A in the upper left-hand corner. So this is another area where they have been replacing the pipe, unfortunately, improperly and without permits. That was from the October 28th, 2022 inspection, as are these pictures from unit number 1. I would have to say that just to clear things up, that upper right-hand picture is of a shower that had seemingly not been used in quite some time. That was a sock. The box is around a sock with something stuffed inside to keep building materials or dust or what have you or water from going down into the drain. The drain cover is actually pulled off. There was a sock in there, and the individual had not been able to use the shower in quite some time. The two pictures on the left, one is sort of a straight-on chest level picture. You can see this great big hole. There is cardboard tucked in there. I was actually told that the hole goes all the way through to the next unit, in which a gentleman lives, and this was a lady that I was speaking to. So it's an unfortunate situation. This was opened up. You can see that somebody had attempted to run these PVC pipes, and then it continues up the wall. That's what the upper shot is looking up as it's been run all the way up the wall. Can't tell you what the person was thinking there, but that has not been permitted.
And the only violations are this work without permits?
Your Honor, we were graced with adopting the International Property Maintenance Code, which includes a lot of additional tools for the Code Enforcement Office to use at the last City Council meeting. So we will, moving forward, have other tools to handle situations like this. At this moment when we got started, we did not have that tool in our tool belt.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. This is the same unit that we just were looking at, their shower. This is underneath their sink. That's the back of the vanity, and there's not even a back. And you can see that some of those lines are new. The white PVC. The hole next to the toilet goes not just through the tile and the drywall or hardy board behind, but through the concrete block behind too. I have no
And
idea.
you don't have any idea who the contractor is that's...
If there was a contractor that did this, I would be absolutely shocked. I would say this is the work of a handyman,
Okay.
you know, in the nicest form of that expression. Now we're looking at unit number 3, which was the second unit that I got to see. And that was, here we are, these two pictures are of the shower wall. Again, it's all carved out. None of that, they needed at least a plumbing permit and a building permit to even begin work like this. And that's the vanity in that same unit down below, and you can see much of the same. There's a little bit more of backer still there, but they've you know, you can see the corroded pipes, the rusty one behind, and you can see these new elements that they've added, no permits. But on top of all of this work that's being done, a lot of these pieces aren't functional for these tenants either. And before I move on from these 2 units, I also have pictures that were sent to my work cell showing much the same in another unit in that same vicinity.
Okay.
This was when Steve was called out that work was being done in units 14 and 15. He could see that drywall had been replaced, plumbing was being stubbed in, and he can tell you a little bit more about that when I call him up. That's what he saw much the same in unit 15 as well. I have been advised that the folks who are doing the work in this way now have a secret knock, so that when an inspector knocks on the door, they don't plan to answer. They will only answer if the person knows the secret knock. I don't know that that's true, but it's what I was told. And again, that's the overview in case you had any questions about where on the property these things were occurring. This is a permit screenshot, and you can see that the last permit that was obtained for this property is the uppermost line where the green check mark is, showing that it was final approved when it was obtained back in 2020. That happened to be to remove and replace some drywall in Unit 10. Incidentally, that permit was obtained, I do believe, after a notice of violation was sent for a similar situation.
Okay.
Not for a tenanted or a rented unit at that point, I believe for a vacant one, but I can't be certain of that. I would like to call the building official Edmonds to the podium.
I have a couple questions for you
Yeah, absolutely.
before we go further.
Sure.
I noticed that there were stop work orders, copies of those. Those were removed?
When we place a stop work order, we don't track whether it's pulled down, whether it stays in place. We don't know. We don't know who's looked at it and is acting on it or not. So I really can't answer whether those were removed or not. I would say that a lot of different things happen with stop work orders when they're placed, but I don't know specifically what happened to these.
All right. And, sir, you came in late?
I did, I only just found this on the property. I haven't been notified about the meeting, so I'm the property manager, and we're aware of what's going on and that there is no permit for the work.
And what's your name?
Mike Bretzel, with Professional Property Management, I'm the broker. And
Okay.
we've been in touch with several plumbers to get a permit. In the very beginning, when the work started, it was supposed to be a small.
Wait. I just asked who you were.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, we have just because you came in late doesn't mean I'm going to restart everything.
No worries.
I'll fit you in.
Perfect.
Do you have any questions for Ms. Herstein based on what you've heard?
No, I don't disagree with anything she's saying.
Okay. And Ms. Herstein, just to repeat one minor thing, you did serve a copy of this notice by return receipt requested mail. And could you go over that again for the record?
Absolutely. The notice of violation was sent by certified mail, first-class mail, and also was posted. It was sent to the owner of record, which is in another state. I did not have service perfected through the certified mail. I did not have the first-class mail returned to me, but service was perfected by posting for the notice of violation. For the statement of violation request for hearing, service was perfected to the owner in the other state at that statutorily to be used address. And I also did post the property, trying to reach anybody who would pay attention and listen to the situation.
Okay, and that would be Derek Taub, 1800 Camden Road, Suite 107, Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
For the
And
record, yes.
I see a certified mail return receipt requested receipt in 5B-27.
5B-27. There are affidavits for the posting, which, for the notice of violation, and then there is the certified mail record for the statement of violation, request for hearing, notice of hearing, and I'm almost to 27.
Okay.
Yes,
I'm
that is-
satisfied the city has done what it's supposed to notify the property owner, and I'm going to continue to proceed. That's why.
Thank you, Your
You
Honor.
may call Mr. Edmonds.
I would like to do so. I'd also like to point out that the gentleman that has joined us in the chambers does not, though I recognize him as the person who told me he was the property manager, and know him to have been a property manager at other properties. We don't have any form of authorization for him to represent the property in any way.
Okay.
So if you chose to ask questions, that would be, but it would be with the caveat that haven't seen a lot of managing.
I'm not going to allow him to represent the party. I may ask him questions,
Thank you, Your Honor.
okay? All right, Mr. Edmonds, I know you've been previously sworn. You probably still have the same amount of experience. Let's go.
Steve Edmonds, City Daytona Beach Shores building official, been here 20 years. But this project we issued a stop work order on, just like Wynn has stated. I've issued 2 of them there. I've been to the site a couple times. I've threatened to have to call the police to get them to stop working sometimes. I've gone there and tried to tell them not to backfill these ditches because they were in wrong and they were gonna have to dig them all back up and they were just wasting their time, and they still continue to keep doing it.
Okay.
So the stop workers have not been removed, and they will not be removed until such time as they get permits and it's inspected and it's approved and finalized. So they stay into effect. They're not like a unsafe building notice that we post. That could possibly be coming. But when we post those, that's a legal notice that is not allowed to be removed by law. The stop work orders are not.
Okay, when was the last date you saw work progressing on the property?
The last day that I was there was when I issued the second stop work order.
And that was when?
Show you a copy of it.
January 4th? Or November 7th, 8th?
The November 3rd.
And no permits have been applied for since November 3rd?
No.
Okay.
Steve?
Do you have any other
I have
questions?
questions for Steve, just to make sure the record is as clear as possible. Is everything that has been presented by the city in the form of documents, any that you created, are those accurate representations of the documents that you actually created?
Yes, they are.
And are the facts as they've been presented by the city, do those represent an accurate account of the facts as you're aware of them?
Yes, they do.
And is there anything you want to add to, change, correct in the record for the special magistrate and for the record itself?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, sir, what is your name?
Mike Drexel?
Mike Dressel?
Drexel.
Drexel. Okay. Mr. Bressel, you are in a very unusual position in that you do not have authority to represent the owner. I can ask you questions, but you cannot volunteer any statements to me.
Okay.
All right? Please raise your right hand. Do solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How long have you been managing this property?
Probably 4 or 5 years.
Why were the stop work notices not heeded?
We just can't get a plumber that wants to pull a permit originally.
No, that's not what I asked you. I asked you, you're familiar with the stop work
The work was
orders?
stopped on all the plumbing. Then he went into number 14 where the guys were putting down flooring and painting the place. And if you notice, the counter was pulled out, the kitchen sink, but was not put back in. So we understand that we need to have a plumber to pull a permit to attach the sink in there.
Okay. Why are these units in such awful shape?
We had to stop doing the work that we were doing, of course, but we need to get a plumber to go in and do it.
Right, well, that was November 3rd.
It's taken a long time to try to get a plumber. We had some plumbers that came and gave us huge estimates and then said, but I can't do the work anyway, I'm just too busy. So we're trying to find a plumber that'll go in and finish the job.
Okay. Are you in regular contact with the owner in Charlotte, North Carolina?
Yeah, he's actually in Canada. In North Carolina is just somebody that accepts his services. That's an outside service that sets up the LLC for him, so they put themselves down as someone that gets the notices. But he lives in Canada, so I am in touch with him, yes.
Okay. Please tell him the special magistrate is not happy regarding what I'm seeing. I'm seeing no effort outward except for you showing up late, telling me you're trying to find a plumber. And the fact that 2 stop work notices were removed and work progressed, that's not something I abide by. Okay?
I understand.
All right, thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to find violation, issue an order number 7. Plumbing permits will be received by February 15th. That's less than 30 days, because I have a meeting on February 16th here, and I'm going to ask the city for an update. After February 15th, $250 per day will accrue. You have until March 20th to complete the work that needs to be done, or an additional $250 per day will accrue. Do you understand, sir?
Yes.
I'm also ordering $149.09 in administrative costs payable by February 15th.
Understood.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The 2 people that came here, do you understand what I just did? Okay, that is the extent to which I can help you based upon what's in front of me, our failure to pull plumbing permits. That's all I can do. $500 a day should get somebody's attention.
I appreciate it. I'm sure he's gonna evict me because he saw me here today.
All right.
I'm the one who initiated it, and I was evicted.
Well, we appreciate that, and from what Ms. Herstein says, that the city council gave her more tools to improve where y'all live. But all I have in front of me are failure to pay permits, not the place is horrendous and unlivable. Okay?
It was not that condition when we moved in. We don't understand why they had to do this. I mean, our water was working fine. And from what I understand, they evicted me and dressed that up and told the man that rented it, another guy has rented my old apartment. And he says everything is the same when I was there, and he's gone to the clerk and paying his rent there with a complaint against him. I mean, it's just, everything he said was a lie.
Well,
And this has been going on since the 1st of August.
$3,500 a week if they don't do what they're supposed to. If that doesn't get their attention, there's nothing more I can do.
Thank you.
Okay? You're more than welcome to stay. I know this is highly entertaining and informative, but you're welcome to leave as well. Okay? Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Gao,
Yes.
you done with your high school math problem?
I got an A back then, I don't know about now, but yes.
I know, you became a lawyer because you didn't want to do math, right?
Yes, I've done the math.
All right, what figure are you willing to defend that the delays were caused by city offices?
Yes. So, just to,
I know you don't have a slide for that, but
I'll read it out. Based on review of the permitting, it's back in the presentation. The application, the full application was submitted June 28th. The first comment letter from the city was issued on 7/20, so that was 22 days of permit review. A revised plan was submitted on September 3rd, 2021. There was a response letter to that issued on 9/8. There was no resubmittal, and that 9/8 letter said you had the city's address wrong. And then there were substantive comments issued on 9/29. So from that 9/3 plan to the comments on revisions is 26 days. And those are during the permitting review process. Also, just from the records of notes, I noted that the time for completion of work, the 160 days within that, as noted in Gwen's record of time, the contractor was in the hospital from February 9th to March 9th, the 30 days, which was noted by Sandy as well in her email that we submitted. And that is it on the general building repair. So 22 days permit review, 26-day review of revised plans, a 30-day hospitalization when the work was completed.
Okay. Thank you for figuring that out.
Next permit, the electrical permit. This one is very interesting. They applied January 2021 at the beginning. It was not completed then. It was actually issued in February 2022. I believe that the general building repair needed to be completed first. But I double-checked this just on timing, and the request for re-inspection was 1/31. They reapplied that day. It was issued on February 7th. So from the actual application to the turnaround was 7 days. Overall, it was 230 days. But that is because we had to do all the other permitting. The building permit, the glass repair, that was applied for November 30th, issued on December 8th. We're back on the city's fast permitting review. That's 8 days and 120
Right,
days.
but that one was during while other things should have happened, so I'm not going to give you any credit for that.
Right, that's why there's no underline.
Okay.
The plumbing permit originally issued 3/3, reissued 3/21, final inspection 3/25. The request to have the plumbing permit reissued was made on 3/10/22. So there's 13 days there within the plumbing permit before it was issued for permit review. Electrical permit was 6 days, very quick. That was that last thing that they needed to review for compliance. And the certificate of habitability all just kind of tied in to all of those. Based on the records provided from Sandy, it appears that work stopped after the car impacted the vehicle for 90 days based on hers. It just said work was held. That's the record I have. I don't know how much of that was contributed to changing the plans during that time.
Okay.
And then the next slide here is just a compliance breakdown of the cost put to repair the item. These are just pulled from the permit value itself, not the proposals. So the permit value for the window repair, $24,000, electrical permit, $11,000, AC unit, very small, roof repair, $20,000, the wall installation, $16,000, and you see from there for the total remediation cost to the property of $72,858 to comply. The basis for the requests, based on Sandy's email that is part of the record, impacts to supply chains for the steel beams and the contractor timing delays for COVID. Impacted timing, I don't have a time frame to assess to that. I wasn't involved and she didn't give me that information before she passed away. So that is just a general acts of third parties, the vehicle driving through the building I just touched on. Here I see steady progress. I wish that some of my clients communicated as much, although they could have been taking more action. I absolutely agree. We've talked about the permit timing review and then hopefully the costs contributed towards compliance. The request will change, and obviously we're open to any discussions. That is the total permitting days of 488. We've parsed that out since. But subtracting that from the overall was the original reduction request.
So how much of a reduction request are you asking for?
Now I need to add up everything that we went over from today.
Okay.
I just think that the administrative time for review is a good basis to review in addition to the cost of compliance. Seems like an equitable result for the property owner.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the request, please?
A reduction based on the just administrative permitting time for compliance, in addition to any equitable considerations for the cost for compliance and the, I'm going to say, extraordinary circumstances of the pandemic. Addition should be the easiest of the day.
That's interesting.
I am getting 109 days in permitting review. I don't know if we have the same.
Okay, yes, Gwen?
Will I have a chance to redirect in some of the basis that this is built on? I have to defend the city a little bit on. I'm not in the habit of, I don't want to thwart a reduction effort, but I do want to make sure that it's based on information that is accurate.
Okay, you're going to get your chance.
Okay, thank you.
So you have what?
109 days.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, I think that covers it.
Okay. Ms. Herstein, would you like to ask her any questions?
Thank you.
If not, I'll let you present.
Actually, if you don't mind staying, I'll take this spot right here. May I ask, I've heard you say the issue date for the permit, there was one that you talked about, there was a 9-day issue date. Are you aware that the issue date is from the time that it's ready for issuance? The issue date is the date that it gets physically obtained. So the contractor has to make that move.
Just to figure, yeah. Any
So-
dates that I have in here are just the permit date from the file.
Yeah. If I could take you to, for a second, to page 4B-40 and 41. This is an example, I think it's an appropriate example. 4B-40, that was a permit application. You can see that it was received on November 30, 2021. And the next, and this was for the glass system, once they decided to go with a glass company. When you flip this over, because I think this was the permit that you were talking about with the 9 days, the date of issuance is 12/8/21, so 9 days, but this box around the 12/1/21, that's the date we called the contractor and said, your permit's ready to be picked up. There was a 1-day turnaround time from that application because we had what we needed to issue the permit to the time we called them and said, it's ready. So it's a little bit of a, it's a little misleading to say that there were even 9 days in that transaction. We
Okay.
got the glass specs and then, it was ready the next day because we got what we needed.
And that one was not included in the dates.
Okay, but just as an example, and I think it's a good example because when a company who knew what to provide submitted the permit application, they had their permit the next day.
Right. And if we have a time frame here, and in that time frame, they're trying to obtain permits, but they haven't fulfilled the work done on one of their previous permits, I'm not giving credit there. It's just delays that held the overall project up from start to finish.
I would also like to direct you to 4B-35. This is one of the letters that was sent. It was actually sent twice because somebody asked for either another copy. I don't know why. If you read the bullet number 1, this is what Steve reached out and said he needed. This is one example of 3 response letters. Generally, a property has 0 or 1 response letters. If you're building a high-rise, there might be 2. 3 would be a unique, not unique, but unusual situation. So for this, if you read number 1, what he was having to reach out and ask the builder for was information that a builder would, engineer or builder would generally know to provide. And do you know, with your experience, for that to be true, that information is generally submitted the first time with the first permit submission? The fact that we're looking at a screen saying the city took a year to turn around a permit, while it did take a year for that permit to turn around, it wasn't on the part of the city that we delayed or that we waited or that we changed When we told them they needed a door, they decided to add that door to the permit that was already, underway. That's a fine choice, it worked out. I don't want to be contrary, but at the same time, I do want to protect the city's reputation, because I think that we do, and you said yourself, we turn around permits in a timely way. Maybe there are, first of all, did that make sense to you, number one, that those things that Steve is asking for are things that many, many contractors and engineers would have known to submit with the first permit submittal?
Yeah, I think for the columns, I think that they provided a letter, it was already in place. It was kind of an after-the-fact permitting. And so they provided the letter that it was structurally sound, so they didn't provide you the full details. So absolutely, it's needed from you guys. I can see why they thought it was complete, but yeah.
Okay, and I'm sorry.
And not having that possible.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, again, the city's not emotional about the fines and where they stand, but we do need to protect our reputation as far as, are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? And in this case, I feel like we were.
I don't think you're not. I think you're doing it as quicker than any other municipality that I've ever dealt with.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay? All right. Do you have anything else to say, Ms. Gow?
I cannot.
Okay. I'm finding that there are 97 days not attributable to the property owner out of the, what was it, 533 days that were excusable that the property owner should not be held accountable for. So I am rescinding $23,250 of the fine, ordering $110,000 be paid within 6 months, or the entire fine of $133,250 will lay. In addition, administrative costs of $243.26 within 30 days. I understand that this entire project costs less than the fine, but the problem with out-of-state or out-of-country owners is often we have delays, just like the last hearing you saw what's happening. So that's my decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We had 4C taken out. All right, the last case we have is 5A, Oceanside Inn Condominium Association Incorporated, which is PCDEF 2022-55. Is there any representative for Oceanside Inn Condominium Association? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to let the city proceed, but I'm going to take the unusual case of our action of telling you exactly what I want to hear about first. That is violation C, first floor ceiling near elevators is structurally flawed.
I'm happy to discuss.
Is this a collapse kind of situation?
That would be something that we should ask the building official, but I would think, in lieu of asking him, if it were a situation that he deemed to be rising to that level, that he would have made them take precautions.
Okay.
Safe it off. Do you need to speak about this?
I'd like to, yes.
You'd like to? This is actually going to be a request for continuance, but I understand where you're coming from with your question.
I
Grant it.
will not continue it if it's a safety hazard such as what happened in Miami.
Well, it's not to the point where I would feel it's gonna collapse. Obviously,
Okay.
it's been there a while already and it has not collapsed. It is not a good situation. I have not seen it recently. The problem that they had was the area that it was at was cordoned off because they were remodeling their lobby.
Okay.
And so this area was pretty much, it was going out an exit to a parking garage deck. Since that time, they have opened up the lobby and never fixed the area, because the idea was they were supposed to get the one exit opened and then close this area so they could fix it, and then they have not fixed it.
Okay, and by structurally flawed, what do you mean?
It's reinforcing bars that have been, it's falling concrete is what it is.
Okay,
So it does have exposed rebar, and it's in probably a 3-foot around area. So it is a large area, but there is walls both sides of it right next to an elevator shaft, so I don't feel it's gonna be a collapse on a building like Surfside.
okay, that's what, every time it's mentioned in my book, it's circled and starred, because I wanted to know more about that than anything we've dealt with today. Okay, so you don't feel this is a collapse
No.
danger? All right,
No, not at this time, but it is definitely something that needs to be repaired in the short term.
okay. Thank you, I appreciate that. I don't want the three of us on the cover of the News Journal,
I don't either.
public officials ignored problem or
I
whatever.
don't want us on the cover
Okay.
for anything, actually. don't I?
Lottery winners.
Okay.
So, who's asking for the continuance?
We were asked last Thursday by Attorney Leanne Wagner. She made a good case for requesting the continuance, but I told her that we would not argue against her continuance request as long as it was granted to the date certain of February 16th or the next code enforcement special magistrate meeting, if it doesn't happen to be February 16th. And she said that absolutely she would, we have an email exchange which is in the record, and I
Right.
did want to ask that each of those documents provided by the city in the code enforcement special magistrate's notebook for this case be accepted as evidence along with the slides which were about to be shown. They're not gonna be shown.
Yeah, I'm not gonna take anything into evidence if we're going to
Right.
continue, because she
Right.
doesn't have
I-
the opportunity to contest it. So,
Okay.
based upon the letter at 5:88 and your not contesting the continuance, I will grant it.
Thank you, Ron.
You're welcome.
Grant it to the date certain
February 16th,
or next, yes, thank you, Your Honor.
or whenever the next meeting is.
Thank you.
I know that it's scheduled for February 16th, but who knows with what happens around here with weather and stuff.
We could win the lottery and be on the front page of the
Well,
I'd
of
still
all
be
of the
here.
things
I
I
don't
would
know about you, but I'd still be here.
I would walk away from, this is not one of them. All right, then the other topic I wanted to bring up is we have a meeting scheduled for Thursday, March 16th. I would like to know if the city would accommodate me in moving that back 1 week, as I'm taking my family to Italy.
Very nice. Apparently, we are happy to accommodate that as long as our city clerk gets Italian chocolate, was
Of
the
course.
statement that was made.
So that would then be March 23rd?
23rd.
Okay. Anyone else have anything they'd like to discuss? All right, hearing nothing, we will adjourn.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, everybody.